This line was the best example of what 5 men, 6 men working together can accomplish in the NFL. You can win it all.
Big hole! Walk the dog! Put his leash up on the rack!
He used to scare our players and me.
One of the greatest offensive lines ever.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. Bucky, we are looking at the 93 Dallas Cowboys offensive line and run game, comparing it to the 2016 Dallas Cowboys offensive line and run game. Are you ready?
I am ready, man. It would be nice if I was a Cowboys fan, though, right?
I grew up. I was a Cowboy fan. I work for the Eagles, so I don't. That doesn't play well with the Eagle fan base. But I was a Cowboy fan as a kid, so I remember watching this group. And by the way, we're going to go through this comparison between these two, and then we're going to bring in an expert in the field, somebody that played with that 93 team a little bit later to weigh in on the subject. All right, let's take a look right now. First of all, the current Dallas Cowboys offensive line and what they look like on paper. Bucky, when you see the entirety of the group here, you're going to notice one thing: a lot of high draft picks in there.
3 first-round picks, Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, guys that came in and established themselves very quickly as some of the top 5 players at their respective position.
How about all about the same weight, too? 320, 320, 318, 310, 318. So big, athletic, gifted offensive line, Bucky. And when you get a chance to watch them and what they do on tape, it is phenomenal what they can do up front because they have a mixture of athleticism and physicality. You're going to see Tyron Smith right here, the left tackle. Remember watching him do this at USC. He can get to the second and third level. Watch him out here on a corner, Bucky. Just smother him on the edge. You're going to free up a nice long gain here for the back. It looks like Darren McFadden sighting right there.
How about D-Mac?
D-Mac running there. All right, now let's go earlier in the year against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to see how this group works together. We're going to see a nice little combination here. We're going to get the center is going to take care of the linebacker. Timmons coming through. They're going to see a nice down block. But then the key right here, working up again to that second level, Tyron Smith, he washes out Shazier. And Ezekiel Elliott, I believe that's a game winner against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's a game when he bumped his head on the goalpost. That blocking up front has allowed him to really be a dominant player. Led the league in rushing because he's playing behind arguably the most talented offensive line in football.
Yeah, we speak of Ezekiel Elliott. You see him right there, by 225 pounds and just an outstanding athlete. He can do everything. We've talked before about what he does, pass blocking and catching the ball out of the backfield. But he does a nice job of following these lead guys up front and knowing when to stick it inside. And then in this case right here, Bucky, he knows when to press the hole and bounce. This is something that you just get its feel, its vision. Press the line of scrimmage, nothing there. Now you just got to win one-on-one. You've got one free defender. He's going to beat him right there, a little stiff arm to free himself and get around the edge and get a nice chunk of yardage right there. So you see what he can do. Nice hurdle to polish things off there.
Yes.
When it's not there inside, he's athletic enough, has that vision to bounce it and make things happen. However, you also see him with the power he possesses between the tackles here, Buck. And just not a ton of room, but he's going to find a little crease, get skinny through there, and watch him go through the hole and finish. This is what I love about him, the contact at the 4-yard line. And look what he ends up doing. He's in the paint. Another touchdown there for Ezekiel Elliott. So you've got a beautiful mixture of an athletic, physical offensive line and athletic, explosive, and physical back. Man, it's going to be tough to match up with this 2016 crew.
It absolutely is tough. I mean, there's a reason why he was number 1 in rushing. He played behind those big fellas. They move people off the ball. And then he's crafty enough where he can hit you with power or finesse. Hard to find a combination behind that offensive line that can get it done like that.
I made the case here for the 2016.
I mean, you made a nice
group.
case.
But now let's go back in time a little bit. You know, you're a little bit older than I am, Bucky.
I mean, this is my era.
Appreciate this.
The 1993 Dallas Cowboys were absolute monsters up front, and they did it in a different fashion. There, you don't see all those high-priced early picks that we see in the 2016 class. We're talking about some guys that were grinders, 2 undrafted guys, late-round pick and Kevin Gogan. You do see 2 third-rounders in Eric Williams and Mark Stepnowski, but really it was the group that kind of made this thing go, not necessarily the collection of individual parts. I love watching them perform back in the day, even though I hated them when I was with the Green Bay Packers. They just kind of move bodies off the ball. Here we're going to see a little offset I formation. Emmitt Smith is going to take this. I mean, this is just their bread and butter play. Little counter O, Nate Newton blocking down.
Ooh, it's a lot of beef.
A lot of beef, moving people out. Runs through arm tackles. These are the things that Emmitt Smith routinely did in 93 in the mid-90s. Physical, ground game. They kind of beat you up at the point of attack.
Look at those shoulder pads Emmitt's rocking back in the day.
It's big shoulder pads. Big shoulder pads. Nate Newton was the guard. Nate Newton was the athletic guard. He could pull around, make sure he could get to the second level. Here, once again, we see a little counterplay. Watch Newton come up. He's going to dig this guy out the hole. Now, this is what you like if you're Emmitt Smith. To be able to get 9-10 yards untouched safety, this is what you're asking for. And those who don't remember, this was the game. He actually hurts his shoulder on this play, comes back and continues to help them clinch the division. Emmitt Smith had the toughness, but he was able to really not take big shots because that offensive line routinely made big plays, created big homes.
Yeah, Emmitt Smith, not the biggest guy either. If you've been around him, 5'9", but really, really a powerful lower half, 216 pounds. What a heck of a pick there in the middle of the first round. They had the triplets. We got Michael Irvin here. We see Troy Aikman all the time. But Emmitt Smith, those guys, I'll tell you, is what made that whole thing go.
He absolutely made it go. You talk about the all-time rushing leader, and he did it really in a very workmanlike fashion. Not necessarily sexy or sizzling in terms of the way he made cuts or whatever. He's a downhill player. He would see him take the toss sweep, looking for a crack, boom, gets into the crease, takes it all the way to the backside. Efficient, effective, found a way to consistently put the ball in the paint.
Yeah, look, you want to finish a game, Bucky, too. You could do it with this offensive line and with Emmitt Smith. 4-minute offense, these guys were built for it.
Absolutely built for it. Once again, we see the little jab step, the counter, Nate Newton leading the way. Emmitt Smith breaking through tackles in the backfield, finding a way to put them in the paint again. You have to like what he's doing.
All right, Buck, we've had fun going through this discussion here, looking at these 93 Cowboys against the current Cowboys offensive line in terms of run blocking, but I thought we'd bring in an expert on the subject, and that's somebody that was around that 93 team, not only around the team, a key member of a 3-time Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboy team. That's fullback Daryl Johnson. Daryl, thanks for joining us here.
My pleasure.
So we're kicking around these two offensive lines, the best of their era. I think we can safely say that. But to compare them, that group that you played with in '93, you go Tuanay, Newton, Stepnoski, Gogan, and Eric Williams. What was it about that crew that just made them so special?
I think it was the unit as a whole, because it's much different than the Dallas offensive line that you see playing the game today. There were not high draft picks in that group. You had several free agents. Gogs was a mid-round pick. I think it was a 12-round draft at that time. I think he was a 6th-rounder. Nate and Tui were free agents, and then Mark and Eric were both 3rd-rounders. So it wasn't a starting 5 filled with talent that was drafted high. But when they came together and played together, it was one of those things where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and it is one of those unique situations. And they all brought kind of a different element. Mark was great. He was the leader of the group at the center position. Very, very, very good with his technique. Very smart. Got all the information up and down the offensive line. Eric Williams was the physical guy in our group. He was the nasty part, even though Kevin was called big nasty. I think Eric was a little bit nastier than Gogs, but they all brought a special element to that offensive line, and when they came together, it was very special. The group that they have today are just very, very talented guys from the get-go. Tyron Smith, I think everybody knew who he was going to be when they drafted him. Travis Frederick it was the last pick in the 1st round. Zach Martin, obviously the big decision between Johnny Manziel or Zach Martin, and thankfully Dallas went with Zach Martin. So you've got 3 1st-round guys in that group. And then, Ronald Leary reminds me a little bit of kind of what our guys were like back then. Kind of an overachiever, tough guy. You see him kind of around the pile, scrapping a little bit from time to time. And then Doug Free is kind of that consistent veteran on the outside that's kind of been there, done that, and the other guys can lean on him for advice.
When you look at the two groups, obviously you talked about this group, the 2016 class, having more 1st-round picks. But when you look at the way they're made up athletically, physically, how do those two groups compare between 93 and 2016?
Well, our guys were really big. There's a lot of guys that talked about, our group, except for Mark, obviously. Mark was the undersized guy in the middle. But as a technician, probably the best of the 5. But everybody else was a big guy. Tui was a big guy. Nate was a big guy. Eric was a big guy. Gogs was a monster. So we had the size and the ability to come off the ball. These guys are very, very similar in size, but size across the board. Travis as the center, still a big guy, over 300 pounds. So They're a little bit different in the makeup that we have, but I think one of the one thing that's in common, and you hear this about a lot of offensive lines that become very, very good groups of starting five, is they spend a lot of time together. And Tony Saragusa always used to joke about it. He goes, they move around like a pack. There's 5 of them. There's 8 of them moving around the locker room. They go to dinner together on Thursday nights. They just always seem to spend time together. And I think it's something that's unique about that group. Our guys had that back in '93, and these guys have that in 2016. They're always hanging out together. They work out together, have dinner together, spend time away from the facility together. So they're building that bond, that chemistry.
Well, I got to ask you then, you talk about that being together and that bond. I just saw, what was it, last week or around Christmas time, Ezekiel Elliott kicked in with some all-terrain vehicles for the offensive line. What was the nicest thing Emmitt ever got your group up front?
We got Rolexes on his first rushing title.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, Christmas Day was pretty special in the locker room on the offensive side. Emmitt was very thankful. We had Troy, who was very thankful. We had Michael, who was very thankful. But I think the makeup of the defensive side of the ball is just a little bit different. So they'd walk in, and there would be gifts everywhere on the offensive side of the locker room, and they'd look back to the defensive side and go, hey, where's our stuff?
Dion wasn't footing the bill over there, huh?
Yeah, it's just a different dynamic. Like we said, the guys on the offense spend time together away from the facility. And Tony would say, he goes, listen, I've had enough of you during the course of the week. When I get away from here, I don't want to be around you anymore. So there's a little bit of that kind of that solo element to defensive players. They move around in their groups and stuff and watch film together at the facility and do things like that to build the chemistry. But I think especially the offensive line, when they get away and they have their own time, they're still hanging out together.
I think it's unique that you talk about the offensive lines, and both teams had special running backs in Emmitt Smith and obviously Ezekiel Elliott. How much of the success of both runners is due to the offensive line, and how much would you say is really due to the talent that they individually bring to the table?
Yeah, it's kind of like that chicken or the egg theory, where the offensive line's great because of the running back, or was the running back great because of the offensive line? So I think it's kind of a happy medium. There were times when the offensive line wasn't playing well, and Emmitt would find ways to still get his yards. I think you see some of the tough runs that Ezekiel has had this year. It's not always going to be blocked perfect up front, and that's when it's up to the running back. But I think it's that blend between the two groups, the offensive line up front, the tight end, the fullback, the running back, everybody working in conjunction. That's when something special comes along. But there were people that said, Emmitt did a lot of those things that he did throughout his career because of that great offensive line. I don't think that the guys in front of him deserve all the credit. You're watching him right here on some of these runs. Now, we were able to give him an opportunity to get down the field a little bit cleaner, but he was an exceptional guy. I remember sitting with him in meetings, and that's when our chemistry really kind of started to grow. We sat next to each other in meetings, and there would be times where I thought the play should have stayed front side, and he would come backside, and he'd have a great run, and I'd be, okay, well, what did you see there? Because I thought everything looked good on the front side. And he goes, you're only a couple of yards ahead of me, but that 3 technique, the guy that's on the outside shade, I'm getting some color there. So, I'm trying to get back door. But when you go through, he looks like he's covered up. So there were little things that he told me that were very beneficial to me, so that when we did want to go out the back door, that we came through the back door together. So there was somebody for me, I could pick up the safety who would be unblocked. He wouldn't have to make somebody miss. So, the chemistry continued to grow. But, week after week, he would just do stuff on film, and I'd look at him and go, I don't know how you did that. I don't have vision to see that guy there. I don't know how you made that guy miss in such a small area. So I think whether it's the 2016 group and Ezekiel, or the 1993 group and Emmitt, I think it's that great blend of having a very, very talented guy in the backfield and then having a group of guys up front who know how important it is to be able to run the football effectively.
I can't think of anything more frustrating for an offensive lineman or for a fullback when we're scouting and watching these guys every year for a back with no vision. Because you can have the best offensive line in the world. You got a guy back there who can't find anything. It doesn't do you any good. So you guys had a beautiful mix of having that back along with what you guys were doing in front of him. Now, I got to put you on the spot here. We got to pick one. 2016, this current group that's kind of dominating the league on the ground right now, or your team there in 1993. Better run-blocking group. Who you got, Moose?
Better run blockers, I think it would be us. I think it would be the 93 guys. Now, we were a much more run-based offense, so we did a little bit more. But I remember again, I worked with Tony for 10 years, and he's on the defensive side of the ball. I'm on the offensive side of the ball. And I always remember Tony telling me, and he knew how good Pittsburgh was, but in Super Bowl 30, he said, you just don't see that anymore. You don't see that offensive line come off together as a group and move people a yard and a half beyond the line of scrimmage, because you guys were just very, very unique in your ability to come off the ball. Maybe as an overall line, the 2016 group, this group here, the ability to run block, the ability to pass block. We were a man blocking scheme. Dallas's offensive line does man blocking schemes, but then they also do the zone blocking schemes. And to me, that's very challenging. Those are two very, very different styles of blocking up front for the guys. So again, these guys, 3 of the 5 are first-round draft picks. You get to that point because of your athletic ability. They may be a little bit more athletic than our guys, but our guys were tough as nails. They were overachievers. They all played with a chip on their shoulder because they weren't highly regarded coming out of college.
Also, 3 championships goes a long way in ending that argument as well, right?
Trump card on it.
There you go. Hey, thank you for taking the time and help settle this for us. Wish you the best of luck. Always enjoy watching you play it and enjoy listening to you call games as well. Thank you.
I appreciate that.